So you've always wanted to understand how the solar signal is identified within climate data. So we have with us Christopher from the Arctic University of Norway in Tromsø, who is an expert, and he will explain to us a little bit about this. So climate scientists repeatedly talk about detection and attribution when they attempt to identify the causes for climate change. These are quite difficult concepts for most of us. Could you please explain what these words actually mean?
You know, Yoav, signal detection means to establish that an observed trend or a pattern is unlikely to have appeared by mere chance or coincidence. But once a pattern has been detected, the next task is to identify its causes. This process is what is called attribution. We attribute the appearance of the pattern to a specific set of causes, and then we try to assess their relative importance.
Well, yes, I've heard about this statistical method or technique, which is called multi-regression, but it seems rather abstract. Can you explain a little bit more?
Well, it's very much like detective work. We try to separate the climate signal into a number of parts representing the climate response to individual causes. Each of these causes leaves a certain fingerprint in space and in time on the climate.
Yeah, but how can we know what fingerprints look like?
We need climate models of some sort, complex or simple, that can tell us what the fingerprints of different causes look like. But climate models may estimate wrongly the magnitude of individual climate responses, even though they have got the fingerprints right. Therefore, it makes sense to write the total climate signal as a sum of these fingerprints, but with the importance of each treated as unknown numerical factors.
Okay, but then I suppose that regression is a method to find these factors?
Precisely. But when we compare the sum of fingerprints with the actual observations, we can determine the factors that best correspond to the observations. If this is done successfully, we have a statistical model for the climate signal that is based on our physical understanding of the underlying causes.
Well, can you give an example of, for example, how these fingerprints can be used to attribute a certain causes?
Yeah, a simple example is the global temperature signal during the last 130 years or so. We have separated the fingerprints of the volcanic, the solar, and the human-induced causes.
Okay, so what do we see in those graphs exactly?
The observed temperature signal is the weak gray line you see in the figure. The red curve is the total signal we find after summing all the fingerprints. It doesn't fit the observed temperature profile perfectly. The difference between the observed and the explained signal can be interpreted as variability that appear without any apparent cause.
Well, but what conclusion can you finally draw from this exercise that we've just completed?
There are many conclusions we can draw, but one conclusion we can draw from the solar and human fingerprints is that the sun was as important as the human contribution up to about 1970. But after this, the human influence has dominated. We also note that the volcanic activity has had a significant cooling during the last 50 years or so.
Well, thank you, Christopher. That was great.
Thank you, Joel.